You all right?
There's only room for one woman in his life. And it's gonna be me.
As the janitor goes about his daily cleaning routine, accompanied by the sweet sounds at the school's corridors, he is suddenly jolted out of his rhythm by a blood-curdling scream that pierces the air. His curiosity piqued and concern etched on his face, he swiftly makes his way towards the origin of the noise, and upon entering a classroom, he finds a visibly shaken female student. Recognizing the gravity of the situation, the janitor hastens to seek assistance, racing through the empty hallways. At the same time, another female student, her hands stained with blood, frantically implores him to flee the scene. The story flashes back to several weeks prior, when Chris, an English teacher, and his daughter Riley arrived at their new school, brimming with excitement and anticipation for their first day. Unobtrusively, Kyla, an outcast with a passion for journalism, snaps candid photos for the school yearbook, capturing the essence of the students. Trisha, a popular and influential student, demands that Kyla take flattering photographs of her and her friends, simultaneously mocking Kyla's physical appearance. Later, Trisha sets her sights on Chris, confidently declaring her intention to win his affection. As the English class commences, Riley, Trisha, and Kyla find themselves together in the same classroom, with Chris at the helm. As the bell signals the end of the class, Kyla seizes the opportunity to engage in conversation with Riley, and they quickly discover a mutual passion for the arts. Before they bid each other farewell, Kyla adeptly extracts information from Riley, learning that she is, in fact, the daughter of their English teacher, Chris. Kyla suggests the idea of studying together in the future, and Riley enthusiastically accepts the proposal. From a discreet distance, Kyla then proceeds to observe Chris, snapping photographs while keeping a watchful eye on the developing situation. When Chris returns home, Riley excitedly regales him with stories of her new acquaintances, including Kyla. Meanwhile, Kyla returns home to find her mother, Jess, exhibiting a notable change in behavior. Jess has recently taken up regular exercise and has even purchased a new dress, which leads Kyla to suspect that her mother may be romantically involved with someone. Jess eventually confirms Kyla's suspicions, revealing that she met someone at the local grocery store, but she chooses to withhold the details of their encounter from her daughter for the time being, preferring to keep the information to herself.
Mom, details.
On that evening, Kyla's imagination runs wild as she envisions a romantic and intimate encounter with Chris in the comfort of her own room. The next day, Riley extends an invitation to Kyla to visit their home, with the intention of nurturing their burgeoning friendship. As they engage in conversation, Kyla expresses her desire for a more mature and sophisticated partner, prompting Riley to lightheartedly remark that finding someone with such qualities in high school can be a challenging task. In a moment of distraction, Riley excuses herself to use the bathroom, providing Kyla with an opportune moment. Seizing the opportunity, Kyla discreetly makes her way into Chris's bedroom, where she gently touches his bedsheet, taking great care to ensure that Riley remains oblivious to her actions. The following day, during English class, Kyla finds it difficult to avert Chris's gaze, closely observing his every movement and gesture. Meanwhile, Trisha resorts to various tactics, attempting to capture Chris's attention and impress him. After the class, Trisha approaches Riley with an unexpected piece of information. Their teacher, Chris, is actually Kyla's father. Pondering this unexpected development, Trisha expresses her curiosity about Kyla's motives for befriending Riley, who is the first person Kyla has approached. Intrigued by this revelation, Trisha requests Kyla's phone number from Riley, who, unaware of the tension simmering beneath the surface, innocently provides it to her, completely oblivious to the angry glance Kyla is casting in her direction. Later, Kyla confronts Riley in an aggressive manner, warning her that Trisha is pursuing her father. She brings up a previous history teacher who was dismissed for having an inappropriate relationship with Trisha, expressing her genuine concern for Riley's well-being. The following day, Kyla calls Riley to ask about Chris. Riley reassures her that there's no cause for alarm, explaining that her father is not the kind of person to behave inappropriately. In fact, he is currently dating someone he met at a grocery store. Kyla's heart races as she recalls her mother Jess's recent preparations for a date, and she quickly hangs up the phone. Just then, the doorbell rings, and when she answers, she finds Chris standing there holding a bouquet of flowers for Jess. After a brief introduction, Jess graciously accepts Chris's flowers. Filled with jealousy, Kyla decides to stir up some trouble by accidentally spilling water on Chris, deliberately making it seem like a mistake. Chris, now anxious about the potential disruption this might cause, reacts with concern. Kyla suggests that they remain at home for their date, a proposal that Jess happily agrees to, completely unaware of her daughter's ulterior motives. During dinner, the adults enjoy each other's company and share a pleasant evening. Meanwhile, Kyla decides to excuse herself and heads to her room, plotting another way to disrupt her mother's date. As the night continues and the adults start to connect more deeply, Kyla unexpectedly interrupts their moment with her loud cries. She rushes downstairs in her pajamas, claiming that she spotted a man outside her window. Concerned for her safety, Chris goes to check the area but finds no one there. Meanwhile, Kyla feigns terror in front of her mother, maintaining the pretense of being frightened. The day after, Kyla behaves coldly toward Riley, distancing herself from her friend. When Riley asks about her attitude, Kyla accuses her of spending time with Trisha.
I specifically told you to stay away from her.
Despite Kyla's warnings about the potential risks involved. Hurt by this, Riley decides to step back from their friendship. The following day at school, as Riley approaches her to apologize, Kyla inadvertently opens her locker, causing the printed pictures to tumble out and create quite a spectacle. Rather than confronting the situation, Kyla walks away and heads to Chris's classroom to voice her complaints, with Riley trailing behind and witnessing the exchange. After class one day, Chris offers Kyla a ride, which she accepts.
Hey, need a ride?
Yeah, actually.
When they arrive at Jess's house, Kyla pretends to be taking photos for the yearbook, but secretly captures Chris's text messages on his phone. Hesitantly, Jess reads these messages and realizes they're inappropriate content, which were sent by someone named Trisha. A confrontation follows when Chris returns from the bathroom, and Kyla listens in from another room. Recognizing his true nature, Jess demands that Chris leave her house.
You need to leave, and you need to leave now.
Kyla, instead of seeking revenge, surprises him by initiating an unexpected, intimate encounter as he heads out to his car. The teacher, caught off guard by Kyla's advance, does not respond in kind, leaving her to walk away while he stands there, speechless and alone. Once back in her room, Kyla retrieves another phone she had previously used to message Chris while impersonating Trisha. She decides to dispose of the phone to eliminate any trace of her actions. The following day in class, Trisha tries once more to seduce Chris, but Kyla dramatically interrupts by returning the clothing that Chris supposedly left at her house. This scene captures the attention of the entire classroom, with Riley observing everything that happens. After class, in a surprising turn, Trisha kisses Chris before leaving, which leaves him feeling repulsed by the encounter. Later on, Riley tells Kyla that Trisha has been called in by school officials due to her inappropriate behavior, but Kyla brushes off her friend's concerns. Later that evening, Kyla sneaks into Chris's room at Riley's party in an attempt to get intimate with him. Although he initially resists, he eventually gives in. Their moment is suddenly interrupted when Riley walks in on them. Amid the festivities of the party, Chris steps outside to confront his daughter, leading to a tense exchange that draws the attention of those nearby. Meanwhile, inside, Chris searches for his keys but is interrupted by Kyla, who suggests they continue their earlier encounter now that most of the guests have left.
What do you say we pick up where we left off?
However, Chris remains focused on finding his daughter. This response frustrates Kyla, leaving her to wonder if Riley holds more importance to Chris than she does. The following day, Jess receives a message from Riley stating that they need to have a conversation. As tensions rise, once the class is over, everyone leaves except for Kyla, who remains behind to confront Chris about his aloof demeanor. Out of nowhere, Jess bursts into the room and slaps Chris hard, demanding that her daughter leave.
Now.
Riley watches from a distance, feeling disappointed by the unfolding drama. Jess then turns her attention to Kyla, criticizing her for her inappropriate behavior. In response, Kyla defends her actions, insisting that they stem from jealousy. Jess ultimately realizes that the pictures and schemes were orchestrated entirely by Kyla. Undeterred by the discovery, Kyla insists that she is in love and tells her mother to stay out of her affairs.
Stay out of my way.
In her desperation to reach Chris, Kyla repeatedly calls him, but he does not pick up. Meanwhile, Riley approaches her father for a serious conversation. During their talk, he confesses that he feels broken after Jess's actions and expresses his fear of almost losing Riley. He sincerely apologizes and promises to do everything in his power to keep her close. Later, Kyla sets up a meeting and manipulates the situation to create the impression that Trisha attacked her, leaving Trisha in shock. When Chris arrives to check on Kyla, Riley calls for help. As a result, Trisha is arrested, and Kyla takes pleasure in having Chris by her side at the hospital. She uses the incident to persuade Jess that Trisha is a threat to her. Although Jess agrees to the situation, she insists that Kyla promise not to see Chris again. When Chris and Riley arrive, Kyla pleads with her mother to allow her to say goodbye to him. Riley then steps in, explaining that the recent events have made her father realize he needs help to cope, and she is committed to supporting him. Kyla boldly asks Riley to cover the upcoming volleyball game for the yearbook, urging her to say a proper farewell to Chris. Riley approaches Chris with warmth, but he firmly rejects any notion of a romantic relationship and decides to leave, believing that distancing himself is the best way to remove Kyla from their lives. Despite Kyla's declarations of love, Chris tells her that her feelings are unrealistic and walks away for good. Left alone, Kyla's eyes are drawn to a scalpel that has been left on her bedside table. Meanwhile, Chris drives to school and sends a voice message to his daughter, requesting that she meet him in his classroom for an important discussion. Shortly after receiving the message, Riley finds herself in a dimly lit hallway at school. While Jess anxiously realizes that her daughter is missing, Kyla approaches Riley and cryptically states that there is only one woman in Chris's life before suddenly attacking her with the scalpel. Disturbed and fixated, Kyla makes her way to Chris's classroom, holding the scalpel dangerously close to his neck and expressing her unhealthy obsession with him. Chris firmly denies having any feelings for her, which only serves to infuriate Kyla further. Meanwhile, Riley desperately crawls toward her father's classroom. Kyla suggests they start a new family together, offering to have a child with Chris, since she believes Riley doesn't fit into their plans. In response, Chris forcefully pushes Kyla away, demanding to know where his daughter is. But Kyla retaliates. This causes him to stumble and hit his head on a nearby table. Hearing the commotion, the janitor and Riley rush to the scene. Summoning all her strength, Riley stands up and warns the janitor to escape. However, Kyla quickly overpowers the janitor, giving Riley the chance to run away. Kyla pursues her, ready to attack, but Riley bravely fights back and manages to break free. The struggle escalates as Riley lands a punch on Kyla. Undeterred, she jumps onto Kyla, drawing on every bit of her energy. Riley strikes Kyla with both fists just as authorities arrive. Chris rushes to his daughter's side before she is taken away in an ambulance. To everyone's surprise, Kyla is also being transported in a separate ambulance. Later, in a new town and home, Riley says goodbye to her father on his first day at school, receiving his well wishes as she prepares for her college debut. Chris walks her to the car as she leaves for school, completely unaware of the distant, watchful eyes of a hooded woman observing them. And with that, the movie ends. We hope you enjoyed our video. Watch the next recaps on the screen, and don't forget to subscribe for more amazing recaps. See you in the next one.